June 18th, 2025. Just 4 days after North Korea launched a Hwasong-12 ballistic missile through Japan's Air Defense Identification Zone, a trilateral air formation emerged near Jeju Island. The formation consisted of 6 U.S. F-16s, 2 South Korean F-15Ks, and 2 Japanese F-2s. They carried a message clear enough for Pyongyang to notice. We can operate in these waters without asking permission. Only 8 minutes after entering international airspace, the U.S. F-16s were suddenly approached by 2 MiG-29s from the North Korean Air Force. Launch indicators for 4 missiles began flashing. And what followed was a sequence of actions that drew the world's attention. At 6:53 a.m., June 18, 2025, Osan Air Base, South Korea. On runway 3, 6 F-16 Fighting Falcons, call signs Fox 1 through Fox 6, bearing U.S. Air Force insignia were lined up in 2 rows. Cockpits sealed, pilots silent. No words were exchanged, but every crew member understood this was not a training sortie. This was a deliberate show of force, a strategic deterrent aimed directly at Pyongyang. 2 minutes later, takeoff clearance was issued. Within 30 seconds, all 6 F-16s began rolling. Their F-110 GE-129 engines accelerated each aircraft to 190 miles per hour in under 9 seconds. The initial 2 abreast formation quickly transitioned into an open arrowhead, heading northeast at a cruising altitude of 22,000 feet and a stable speed close to Mach 0.9. Each F-16 was fully combat configured, mounted on the wings. 2 AIM-120C AMRAAM long-range air-to-air missiles equipped with high-explosive blast fragmentation warheads containing approximately 40 pounds of PBX-9501, a high-energy plastic-bonded explosive designed to destroy targets through supersonic shock waves and fragmentation. 2 AIM-9X Sidewinder short-range missiles, each with a multi-mode infrared seeker and ANAWG-21 high-explosive warhead carrying about 21 pounds of AFX-757 compound, capable of disabling an enemy jet with a single hit to the engine or fuselage. In addition, each F-16 carried 2 underwing external fuel tanks of 370 gallons, extending the combat radius to over 930 miles, covering all of North Korea's eastern coastline and the Japanese archipelago. This configuration left no ambiguity. This was not a routine exercise. This was a fully armed strike package with layered capabilities for both short and long-range engagements, able to operate deep within contested zones without mid-air refueling. At 3 minutes and 7 seconds, once the formation crossed 93 miles from the North Korean border, the ANALQ-131A pods activated their first level of low-frequency electronic jamming. Radar stations at Wonsan and Sondok detected anomalies. Background noise surged by 23%, triggering a shift to active scan mode across North Korea's eastern air defense network. Every maneuver by the U.S. F-16 formation was calculated. They never violated sovereign airspace, but got close enough to activate every eastern-facing surveillance node. At the same moment, inside a command post in Pyongyang, a radar console flashed red. An on-duty officer raised the alert. IFF data confirmed American fighter jets, transmitting no codes, requesting no corridor, and refusing to deactivate electronic warfare pods. Radar returns confirmed the formation was operating in international airspace, but dangerously close to a point Pyongyang had previously declared a red line. North Korea's general staff was raised to alert level 2. Moments later, from Suncheon Air Base, 2 MiG-29s were scrambled for immediate intercept. They did not climb in standard formation, but broke off laterally, configured for a rapid engagement intercept profile. Radar systems switched to look-up, shoot-up mode, enabling high-altitude target lock. Critically, Each jet was armed with two R-27 medium-range air-to-air missiles and two R-73 short-range missiles, fully capable of live fire upon command. Nose radars went to high power mode. Internal comms reported, "Unidentified target. Vector for shadow intercept." This was not a patrol. It was a demonstrative response, a required posture in the face of unannounced foreign military presence. At 7:06 and 0 seconds, over the sea 110 nautical miles north of Jeju Island, the two North Korean MiG-29s closed in on the U.S. F-16 formation. Separation between the two groups narrowed to 29 nautical miles, far too close for routine air policing, a situation now tactically loaded. At the same moment, on the radar screen of Fox 2, the second F-16 in formation, a faint trail emerged from the upper right edge. No IFF code, no radio handshake, not part of the simulated track list. Within less than 60 seconds, the signal was validated by at least 3 other aircraft. Its heading, perfectly parallel to the exercise boundary. Everyone understood they were being watched, and the watchers didn't care to hide. Fox 1 transmitted internally, "Break formation, maintain vector, no retreat." Fox 3 and Fox 4 immediately dropped altitude, maintaining safe lateral offset from the core group. The remaining 2 jets rotated radar azimuth east-northeast, placing intercept arcs ahead of the unknown's flight path. Both sides now understood. A single mistaken radar lock, one premature track-while scan, and the F-16 weapons suite would elevate to red alert. What happened next could spiral in full view of the global stage. Exactly 3 minutes later, the tracks clarified. It was without doubt a pair of North Korean MiG-29s. Yet, the F-16s held position. No altitude change, no withdrawal. This calm was no accident. It was trained, authorized, and monitored from Pentagon satellites. This was a standard U.S. freedom of navigation operation executed routinely in contested waters to assert legal boundaries and to preserve transit rights that all regional states are entitled to. At 7:10, the two MiG-29s accelerated into visual intercept range. Separation shrank to under 10 nautical miles, close enough for radar to enter semi-active track mode. A subtle wing dip from Fox 1 to the right, a non-verbal air combat signal. "You're getting too close." And it seemed the two MiG-29s understood the warning, because more than anyone, Pyongyang knew what this kind of standoff could lead to. At 7:20 and 14 seconds, nearly 10 minutes into the intercept, just short of the U.S. ROK Japan exercise zone, an encrypted signal was transmitted from Pyongyang's command center to the two MiG-29s. The voice of the coordinating officer came through. "Maintain distance. Do not cross the surveillance threshold." Both MiG-29s adjusted course immediately. Their nose angles shifted 7 degrees northward, airspeed reduced, altitude held steady, just enough to signal withdrawal intent. To the southwest, the U.S. F-16 formation remained steady at 22,000 feet. No course change, no evasive maneuvering. But the AN/ALQ-131A pods stayed active, projecting a clear message: "We're not here to start a war, but we're ready." At 7:21 and 33 seconds, one MiG activated its identification lights, blinking 3 times in a classic military recognition pattern. It marked the end of the intercept. Moments later, both MiG-29s veered fully toward Wonsan Port, exiting the engagement zone. No missiles left their rails. But the morning's aerial standoff had made one thing clear. A single mistaken radar lock or a misrouted radio warning could trigger an unintended engagement. This was no random flyby. It was calculated. A message that Pyongyang was still watching, still tracking, and still waiting to retell the story on its own terms. But the F-16 formation flew on as if the intercept had never occurred. All 6 jets held altitude, speed, and their exact corridor, passing through as if nothing had happened. And that, in itself, was the strongest signal a professional air force could send in a strategic gray zone. What truly unsettled Pyongyang was not U.S. aggression, but the fact that Washington never asked permission, never acknowledged their claimed ownership of the sky. At 7:26 a.m., 92 nautical miles southwest of Jeju Island, the Trilateral formation officially converged. 6 F-15CMs from the United States Air Force, launched from Osan Air Base, had stabilized at 22,000 feet after executing a tactical loop along the edge of North Korea's Adis. From the south, 2 F-15K Slam Eagles of the Republic of Korea Air Force ascended sharply to 24,000 feet. At the same time, 2 Japanese F-2s approached from the northeast, crossing the East China Sea to join the formation. All 3 units locked into position, a sawtooth triangle configuration standard for modern integrated air defense drills, maximizing radar coverage and distributing tactical roles. Immediately afterward, the training sequence began. Combined air defense. South Korean aircraft acted as high-value targets under simulated threat conditions. Simulated intercept. The US F-16 flight executed a tactical strike drill simulating a low-altitude ingress. Electronic maneuvering, an ALQ-131A jamming pods were reactivated to simulate suppression of ground-based radar, creating a mock electronic warfare environment within sensitive maritime space. This was the first joint drill under South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, who recently declared his intent to deepen U.S.-Japan-Korea defense ties on the foundation of sovereign independence. And it marked the first time in months that the United States chose to conduct a public exercise near North Korea's sensitive exclusion zone without issuing any prior diplomatic notification. A controlled operation, but one carried out precisely along Pyongyang's psychological fault line. What unsettled Pyongyang wasn't the exercise itself, but the speed of coordination and the proximity achieved. In the past, each North Korean missile launch was met with press statements and diplomatic concern. Now, every provocation is tracked in real time, analyzed through a tactical lens, and countered by live operational formations. And when 3 air forces, once separated by history, combine into a unified strike network, the result isn't just a drill. It's a rehearsal for integrated strategy. In Pyongyang, the question is no longer when will the U.S. respond, but do we still have room to act without immediate retaliation? In an environment where any radar emission could trigger a preemptive strike, even minor miscalculations carry the risk of an official counterattack. At that point, there is no gray zone left to negotiate, no space left for brinkmanship. North Korean media later reported on foreign aircraft near the border and dangerous maneuvers by hostile air forces. Over the next 3 days, fighter sorties from airfields like Wonsan and Sondok doubled, primarily short-duration combat air patrols along the border in wide perimeter loops. A defensive reaction, not meant for display, not meant to signal offense, just enough to avoid appearing unready. Ground radar stations in Hamgyong ran continuously. Low-band frequencies showed signs of interference, a clear indication that electronic warfare systems were now in alert mode. In strategic intelligence circles, this points to one thing: loss of tempo control. Pyongyang was no longer dictating the narrative. It was merely reacting to a rhythm set in Washington. And the U.S.? At 9 a.m., the 6 F-16s exited the zone on schedule. No photos were released, no press briefing, no tweet. Only a technical report, sent directly to the Pentagon, along with satellite imagery capturing each flight path, each simulated radar lock, each maneuver, down to the degree. Because for the United States, action doesn't require noise, only precision and clarity, enough to make the adversary rethink its playbook. North Korea understood this. Because what worries Pyongyang isn't 6 F-16. They're too familiar to be threatening, too limited to spark open war. But that's exactly what makes them symbolic of something bigger. When your adversary no longer fears your reaction, your gray zone strategy collapses. And in the East Asian airspace game, whoever can't shape the narrative doesn't control the battle space. This time, the scriptwriter wasn't Pyongyang. It was Washington. And the real question isn't, will North Korea fire first? It's, how much initiative does Pyongyang have left when American silence becomes its most strategic weapon?